Good evening, everyone. How are we? Welcome back to MYT Feedback. Yes, it's me, it's Paul Nolan, with the James in the middle, of course. And yes, I'm back in Liverpool. You can tell this is like the original OG MYT set. So yeah, it's a fun one. It's a fun one indeed. So with that being said, we're going to get straight into it. Over on our YouTube channel, hello to those of you watching on YouTube. Again, if you're not subscribed, do give us a subscribe. We are just under 100 subscriptions away from 8,000, so that'll be a nice little road mark for us, a little landmark for us to hit soon. And yeah, we're over on our brand new Twitch channel. We're on ADSR. Hello to Steve and the guys at ADSR, and also on Magnetic Magazine. And yeah, we're going to go through some tracks tonight. We've got 7 to go through, and it's going to be a fun time. And it's going to be even more of a fun time because, quite frankly, I've got one of my Argentinian partners in crime with me today. I've got...
Abayan is well. Abayan is well. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Yeah. So how are you? You good?
Good stuff, yeah. Yeah, very good. Very happy to be here.
No, mate, happy to have you here. Obviously, you know, we're partners in crime in Argentina when we do get together. We did Demo Dump recently, didn't we, with Nicholas Van Orten and the crew over there.
That was a really fun one. That was a really fun one.
That was a crazy night. That was a crazy night.
And you stayed up, and you stayed up later than I thought that you would be able to.
What? Because I'm old. What are you trying to say? Like I'm an old gringo and can't hack it on a Wednesday or Thursday night? Oh my god.
Yeah, but you know, our Argentinian time is tough. It's tough on the body.
Oh mate, and I'm gonna have to like get used to that again when I get back to Argentina, because now all of my times, it's not just the time difference being 4 hours ahead, it's also 4 hours earlier. I'm having like dinner like 4 hours earlier and stuff, you know. So
yeah, or entering the club at 2 a.m. in the morning.
What are you talking about? Like we're leaving the club at 2 a.m. here.
Well, but yeah, when you go back, you will have to.
Oh yeah,
readjust.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah. The acclimatization. You know, I went to see Sasha and Digweed recently, and it finished at midnight. It's just like, what is this place? What is this place called England? But there you go. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. And yeah, really looking forward to getting your opinions on these tracks tonight. And yeah, we've got 7 to go through, which is going to be a fun one. And yeah, we are just going to get straight into it with one of our MYT members called Mooskke Sean, who is showing a lot of promise at the moment. And this track, I mean, it would be a little bit strange if he released it under the name Guy Barone Inspired. I mean, that would be, you know, a first ever, I would say, tribute track to somebody. But I'm sure, you know, he'll probably change the title on that eventually. So yeah, we're going to get straight into it. We're going to have a listen right now. And here we go to Guy Barone Inspired from Mooskke. So there was Mooskke with Guy Barone inspired. Mr. Abayan, are you inspired by this?
I really like this track. I really like it. I really like the idea of the track, especially the vocals and the kind of percussive 808-ish kind of bass line, you know, like I really like that. Also the tops are really nice. There's a good sample selection. Those kind of metallics, tambourines and all those are really nice.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I really loved it. I mean, obviously, I'm very familiar with Sean's work because he's been part of the MYT community for some time now. And he's undergone like a really serious transformation in the last year and a half. So he's now at the point where like he can mix and master his own stuff. And, you know, I've mixed and mastered a couple of tracks for him and like had him sit in on the session so he can learn. And like he's really got a serious, as you can hear from the mix, like the mix is faultless, quite frankly.
It's really, really, really good. That was about to praise the mixing because it's really, really, really tightly mixed.
Yeah, really, really good.
There's a couple of things about the arrangement that I maybe try to look at. Like during the first breakdown, you might be able to filter the tops a little bit sometimes, or maybe just play more with cutting out the tops or to generate some contrast or variation.
Yep.
So it's not that linear, you know. You can filter it. You can use the fade to gray from Ableton, like to maybe do something to generate more impact because it's like it stays too steady, maybe.
Yeah.
Then you can do the same like in the middle of the arrangement, like after the first mini break. You can do the same, like play more with like taking out or the drums and put them back in, like something like that.
Yeah. I always call that a palette cleanser. Like
exactly.
Take sounds out for a while, you allow the production to become a little more dynamic, and then later on it comes back in and it gives people a chance to miss those sounds, but it also means you can recycle and reuse those sounds, and then you get, you know, another level of functionality out of them, really.
Yeah. You get the track to be more dynamic overall.
Yep.
And with a very low cost, which is just extracting things.
Yeah, exactly. Switching things off and switching things on again.
Exactly. And then, like, during the break, I feel like that drop, it drops without, like, with the filter drums.
Yeah, kind of filters down with the main synth, right?
I would like be careful with that because like I always say like if you can do that, but you have to have a reason to do it, you know, like otherwise you might as well just drop it, you know, like just drop the track
like, you know? It's hot,
just like drop like a regular drop, unless you have a really specific reason, like I don't know, some crazy melody, some crazy effects that is gonna enter, or something unexpected. That's that about the drop. Yeah. And then you have that main like arpeggiated sequence, which we could call it the lead of the track, which kind of opens during the break. You can experiment like a little bit with like a little bit more of automation, like maybe automate the top part of the sound with some delays and some tweaking a little bit of modulation, like changing some delays, the milliseconds of the delays. Try to do something like to make it more not just filter opening, you know? Yeah,
sure. Yeah, I agree with all of that. And then to add on to that, I think, you know, to talk about the breakdown and talk about the build and the drop, I always think that effective breakdowns are always about contrast, right? So you either build it up to a peak of energy in the build and then drop it to something like very simple, like, you know, just a kick and a bass, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or you go the other way, where if you go down, then the explosion needs to be like really high energy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, for me, it's one or the other. And for me, what I'm hearing in this is I wanted that main synth that kind of opens up I wanted it to be a little more aggressive, and I wanted it to open up a bit more and be a bit brighter, maybe have a bit more reverb to it, because even though it's a more deep track, that doesn't mean that there can't be like an aggressive like peak moment. And again, like to do a drop like that, like you said, you have to have a reason, right? You have to have a narrative, storytelling reason for that to be the case. So to do that is from a place of contrast, right? So I just wanted a little bit more from that main synth for it to really open up, really growl, have a bit more dirt and a bit more brightness and a bit more bite to it. And then drop it down to just like, you know, a kick and that lovely sort of chugging, plodding bass that it's got. And then just let the reverbs and the delays and all the sound effects just kind of ring out and just almost like sit for 8 bars and like sort of luxuriate in the drama of it all. And then just go back to that essential groove, if you know what I mean. So I think that's the main thing for me was getting just that little bit more drama out of the break so the drop can kind of go back to doing what it was doing before. And that's really it, to be honest. I think, you know, you've brought some really great ideas to the table on that one, Luca. And, you know, I think my feedback and your feedback are really like complementing here. So, you know, it's already a really incredibly strong track. And I think, you know,
it's really strong.
If, you know, Sean, which he does, one of the things I love about working with Sean, and I'm always embarrassing him in public, you know, on streams and stuff when we listen to his tracks, it's like, he's great at just taking on the advice and just running with it. You know, if everyone I ever worked with was like that, my life would be so much easier. Do you know what I mean? So I'm excited to see what he's going to do with this, and he's going to bring it back probably for, you know, one of our private MYT feedback sessions where we go into even more detail and we spend a lot more time picking through the bones of stuff. And yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited for Sean in general as an artist, because like when I tell you, Luca, like he's got 20 like this. Like he's got an absolute arsenal
in the pocket.
Oh yeah, dude, not even the pocket, mate. It's like a nuclear weapons arsenal that might need a contract to, you know, stymie the development of. Do you know what I mean? Because there's some absolutely great tracks in there. So very, very excited for Sean, like I said, and yeah, brilliant track to start things off this evening. So thanks for bringing that in, Sean. Amazing stuff. Right, we're going to move on. Robin Thurston, who's another one of our MYT guys, and, you know, quite a seasoned guy. I recently, when I was on Proton Radio for my Featured Artist of the Week mix, which obviously, Luca, you made an appearance on as well, for our ID for the Cosmos Orchestra Conviction remix, which we did a little a sprinkle to. If you watched Demo Dump the other week, you know what we're talking about, with the little vocal on top. I'm still waiting for somebody to find out the Easter egg of what I did to the Hanan and Mercurio remix of my track in that mix. Nobody's pointed it out yet. Maybe it's too subtle, but we'll get there. So we're going to listen to this because I put Robin's track on actually from Particles. He had a few months ago. We had an amazing track out on Particles with a Dimitri Molish remix, and fantastic track. So looking forward to hearing this one now. And yeah, we're going to get going right now with this. Let me just get everything back to where it should be. Excuse me, I am having technical difficulties at the moment. Come on. The wonders of live television. Here we go. Slick, smooth,
Slick.
classy. Anyway, that's enough about me. Track's good as well, isn't it?
Well, really, I really like this one.
Yeah.
I really like this one.
Robin's really, really good, man. Really good.
Yeah. Well, I think that this track exemplifies perfectly what we talked in the previous feedback. Like it builds during the breakdown, and then it drops more minimalistically, but it generates more impact due to the contrast.
Yeah.
So it's like really, really, really well played.
Absolutely,
that one.
And it's also like, it's not just like high, I always do that, you know, height of tension, but it's also like length of sound. So, you know, when Robin's really building it up, he's always like expanding sounds, like opening up the filters, lengthening the decays, sending off to reverbs, that kind of thing, to like really extend the envelopes. And then when it drops, everything gets really tight again, like the kick's tight, drums are tight, bass is tight, and nothing takes up any unnecessary space. So it's that contrast as well. Like if you're thinking about it from a production standpoint, if you're struggling to, you know, get your builds and your drops right, that can be an essential thing to think about, is like long in the build and then short on the drop. You know, it's that contrast as well. So he's brilliant at that. And one of the things I love the most about Robin is he loves a good chord change as well. Loves that little key change in the bass, you know what I mean, at the right moment.
Yeah, I really loved. Also, what I really liked is that he played it. This is a really interesting arrangement that the track has, because it's like he played the bass change after the break, like pretty after in the arrangement. So it's really nice. It's really nice because it continues to. The tracks continues to give you things to keep you interesting. So it's like really, really good. There's only one thing like I would like mention is like there's something with the claps.
Right.
There's it feels like it's a layering of claps, and one of the layerings is kind of
slightly out,
too far, slightly far ahead or far like after, and it's kind of like stocks the groove a little bit. Like, so maybe that you can help, because the track overall, even though it's really deep and melodic, has a kind of a rolling feeling. And if it has a rolling feeling, but you have a clap that is like getting like in between that, it kind of stocks the groove, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe place a little bit in the piano roll better, or in the track delay, however you did it, and maybe some little bit of reverb on the delay, because I feel it like kind of dry, but like 20%, 600 milliseconds of decay and 20% wet, and it's good to go. Nothing more than that.
I sort of, I mean, I like the detail in the settings. I always say that you want the envelope and the delay on the reverb, the actual decay time, to just be long enough that it dies just in time for the next kick. Yeah. So it's just neat and tidy. And again, this is what I mean. I do everything regarding reverbs on sends and returns, because it gives me the opportunity to actually work with the reverb, even like small things like a little plate reverb like that, for example. I always, for claps and stuff like that, I always use like the little plate from Sound Toys. Like, I absolutely love that. Love that. Plate reverbs on claps are the one, right, in general, but that one is the best. And it's just got this really lovely tight envelope where you can just tune it to like 0.4, like you said, like 600 milliseconds, something like that. And what's really nice about having it on the send and return is that you can actually EQ it like another sound. So, like, my sort of mixing perspective on that is I treat reverbs, delays, time-based effects, things you use on send and returns, I view them the same as any other instrument, because they've got their own envelopes, their own characters. They need to be EQ'd, side-chained, automated, leveled correctly, you know, stereo image management, everything needs to happen in that way. So just a little thing like that on the clap will absolutely do that. And like you say, tightening up the arrival time, like the initial attack of that clap will work really, really nicely. I've really been going deep on, you know, like sort of like pre-claps where there's like the little reverse, like a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always like putting them now on the end of like the 4-bar and the 8-bar.
That's 2007 sorcery.
Bro, that's some old school Eric Prydz shit.
Old school sorcery.
Yeah, dude.
With
new tools, like Cable Guys brought something out amazing in the last sort of 6 months or so called Snapback. That's really, really good for that, where you can just put your little reverses in and it comes equipped with a load of them that are really great and you can just time them and that's it, you know what I mean? So, love them. Absolutely love them. But yeah, totally
What I
agree.
wanted, before we finish this one, what I wanted to state is that I'm always giving my opinion in what I feel that could work for my taste, like, but maybe is that type of clap that is more like for a rolling kind of track is not what you're looking for, and by all means it's like it's a creative endeavor and anyone like can feel it's just my opinion, you know, like it's not that.
Yeah, of course. No, it's all subjective at the end of the day.
It's subjective. The other person might say like that clap placement is perfect and yeah, it's valid. No, it's not that it's not that it's wrong. That's a really, really good track overall.
Of course, man. Of course. And like what I always like to say is, if people like me and you are nitpicking at this kind of level, then that means it's an incredible track.
Yeah, we are talking about things that most individuals that are listening to the music that are not producers, they are not going to feel that.
No, they're not going to give a shit.
This is almost academic, you know.
Yeah, like, of course. Yeah, but that's why we're standing on the side of the dance floor, stroking our chins, going, that clap's slightly late. And that's why me and you are the exact type of people you don't want to go to the party with.
Dear Robin, no one is going to notice that. It's just us that is going to notice. To be honest, you might well leave it.
Welcome to the den of nerds.
No one is going to know, really. To be honest, no one is going to know. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. No, but all good. Right, we're going to move on. Ivan Lozano is back. We previously put feedback in. Didn't he put one in friend? Didn't he put something in for Demo Dump as well?
Yeah, I really like Ivan Lozano music. Like, I really, really like it.
Yeah, I'm into it, man. I'm into it. I think he's really talented. So here we go. Let's see what he's up to with Brian Cleo. Here we go. Why is my Logic doing that this evening? Thank you very much. Excellent. Well, there's Ivan Lozano and Brian Cleo. I definitely think the drums and the groove are absolutely top notch in this, Luca.
Yeah. It's really like really this modern progressive kind of very club oriented track.
Yeah.
I really love it. I really love it. Really good track.
Yeah. I really like it, although I definitely have some notes. And again, like the whole construction's really good. Like you said, I think you've hit the nail on the head that it's more of a club record. So I think a lot of the creative choices will probably make more sense in a club environment once you hear it on a club sound system. For me, I think the main thing I took from it was in the final third, it lost something for me. And the reason why is because there was I didn't feel like we were arriving at a destination, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is I was expecting things to kind of open up a little bit more. Maybe some more pads, some strings, something to just open up the context of the track and to give me a feeling of, oh, that's where we've been going for the last 4.5, 5 minutes. This is where we're arriving to, this more emotional place that the drums have been driving us to for the last however many minutes. I didn't quite get that. And I felt like, I don't want to say I was bored is the wrong word. I wasn't bored by it at any moment. But by the 5, 6, 6.5 mark, I just felt like it was kind of going through what it did previously. Which, is no bad thing. But I think there's a level that this record can go up in terms of delivering something. And it could be as simple as just adding in a rising pad or something really like granular and quite sort of epic sound, and just to give things like a slightly more emotional edge to really contrast against the real heads down drums. Because I love records like this. I'll dance my heart out to records like this when I hear them in Argentina. I absolutely love them. But for me, I feel like, and again, this is what we were saying about the last track as well, wasn't it? About Robin's clap sample. It's like, if I'm giving you feedback on this level, it means it's already good. And I can hear the potential in it. And I want you to fulfill that potential. And I really want to push you to the next level. That's where the whole feedback is coming from. I don't know whether you'd agree with me on that one, Luca.
Yeah, I agree 100%. This is a track that is kind of it's like the kind of progressive that is kind of the modern progressive.
It's not progressive. Right, it's progress.
Yes, it's the type of Argentinian progressive.
Yeah.
And it's really groovy. It's really this track. I know this track works well in a dance floor for sure.
Oh yeah, this is gonna take the books off the shelves at La Biblioteca over the weekend, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. But then, as you said, maybe during the breakdown, maybe filter some stuff or try to, because the tracks actually it doesn't have a melodic line.
No.
It's like which is like is pretty standard for this kind of genre right now at the moment. Like this is pretty much on the kind of Mango Alley kind of style music.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
But what I'm finding it's like you say, if you want to push it to the next level of emotionality, maybe incorporate something that maybe during the break or after the breakdown, maybe some melodic line or something that generates more emotion and not just the group that's really good.
100%, because I want to hear what Ivan is fully capable of. And I mean that both in terms of rhythmic progression, but I also in terms of I want him to make me feel something. I want a hook. I want something that'll really shift my emotional state. And the drums definitely do that. But I want to hear range. And like we were talking about recently, it's like you've got to find your own sound. And I think Ivan's nailing, like you said, that, you know, Argentinian progress sound like really, really nicely. That's a good starting point. What separates the good artists, or in Ivan's case, a very good artist, from quite frankly like a fucking great artist, is that he can take it from here and do something truly unique with it. And that's a process that'll happen over time. So I'm really excited about Ivan. I've heard a few of his tracks now. I've liked all of them, and that's great. So now it's like, okay, because, you know, there's a lot of people pushing that sound at the moment, and that, again, is not a criticism. But the only vacancy that's available for Ivan to be is the best Ivan Lozano he can be. And he's going to have to do that by experimenting and bucking the trends a little bit. Because one of my favourite questions is always, what are you going to do after the bandwagon leaves town?
Yeah. And also Brian, because they collaborated with this one,
of course, Brian as well, yeah.
We're talking about both.
Yeah, exactly. But because I've heard Ivan so much recently, like I'm obviously excited about him. So yeah, I'm gonna be the guy from Whiplash a little bit. It's not quite. I
would definitely play this though.
Oh yeah, I would definitely play it myself. Like, I mean, I'd probably put something over the top of it. You know, like an acapella or something, or like a synthapella from another track that's in key in the final third, you know, to give it that extra edge. But like I said, I'm going to purposely be bad teacher with Ivan a little bit. I really want to push him. I'm going to get a bit whiplash on him, you know, not quite my tempo. Are you rushing or are you dragging? That kind of thing. So, no, but fantastic, Ivan. Thanks for bringing it in, as always, my friend. Right, we're going to go to Paul Fakos, who has a fantastic story. He is the legend who put in a track for the Patrice Baumel feedback, and Patrice liked it so much he ended up playing it for 6 months afterwards.
Oh, yeah, I know
and that track is now signed. So this is what happens sometimes when you bring your tracks into these feedback sessions. You get signed. We also had 3 people get in contact with Night Colours off the back of the last feedback session. So don't say we don't do anything for you. So Paul got Sirens thanks to Patrice's efforts and a few other people, to Vapor Recordings, fantastic label. Casey Taylor's label out in Australia, and yeah, that's going to be coming out soon, so look out for Sirens on its way out. And this is another collaboration with Shodgers, Mr. Sam Hodges, who I met out in Amsterdam last year at ADE, because there were bloody Australians everywhere at ADE last year. You couldn't move for them. There was like basically bump into an Aussie. I think the only people who were there was only very slightly more Argentinians there than Australians, to be honest. So, you know, it is what it is. So yeah, here's Paul with Solaris alongside Shodgers. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
That's definitely one for the deeper dance floors, I think.
Yeah, for the more mature ones.
Yeah, exactly. For the discerning ear.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah.
This is like quite an interesting track because it's really unique. Like that's what I felt listening to it. It's like a really unique track and it's one of those tracks that truly exemplifies like less is more sometimes.
100%. Yeah, Paul is the master of that. You know, if you listen to Sirens and a number of his other tracks, it's more interesting a lot of the time what he leaves out than what he puts in.
Yeah, exactly. Really nice modulations in the stuff that pops in and out of the mix. Like it's really, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing, like I would say, like for me, this is a really hypnotic track.
Yeah,
you get into that kind of hypnosis.
Yeah,
but thinking of it in a setting of a me being positioned myself in a dance floor, I would probably like to hit a little bit more energy after the drops in the top end. Of the track.
Yeah, just to kind of give it a bit of drama.
Maybe to push the track a little bit forward and it doesn't stale, you know?
Yeah.
Because content-wise, it's really, really nice, but it lacks that dynamic, I think, that in the club will play an important role.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think as well, depending upon, because I think it does come down to what kind of track Paul and Sam are trying to write here. Because if they're going to go for something that's like, 8, 9 a.m. and like, Patrice has been playing for 9 hours already, they've nailed it. Like that's him. That's, I mean, I've never been to Stereo in Montreal, but, I've been told and can understand, and I've heard sets from Stereo where this type of stuff would feel right at home in the, just before breakfast time kind of crew, but I definitely think like a little bit of flair, a little bit of dynamicness can go a long way. For me, on the technicals, I think the kick and the bass relationship needs a little bit of work, because I just felt like while the kick was poking out, I felt like the low end and the bass in particular was just slightly overwhelming to the rest of the track. So essentially the sort of the more mid-range and the more high-end details were kind of getting lost a little bit. And I think if you just dial down the bass by a couple of dB, I think the kick, it comes through really, really well. And then the whole thing feels slightly less heavy. It's slightly lighter on its feet, and the bass will still do its job, but the thing will move just that bit better, and it'll skip just that little bit more, because it is actually like, for that type of track, it is actually fairly rapid, I thought. Like, it felt quick. I mean, I'm not sure what the actual BPM was, but, it felt fairly, it moved along at quite a good pace, or at least it felt that way. So that's the main thing for me. I think as well, like, I love the glitchy effects and stuff like that.
Yeah, I really like that.
I really do.
Yeah.
I do. I love them myself. I feel, though, that some of the same movements of sound were maybe overused a little bit too much as well. I think there needs to be a little bit more variation in the glitches. And, I'll be honest, I was working in the studio with Tim Green recently, and we were doing some stuff with some like glitchy bits, like, not too dissimilar to this. And honest to God, like, me and Tim sent each other around the bend. Every single one of them had to be completely new and unique and only heard once in the track, So, like...
That's a good approach.
Oh, yeah, it's a good approach if you want to send yourself insane. But also, it's a good approach if you want to, like, really make your music stand out. So, even though it might be a bit of a painful process, it's worth it in the end, knowing that, there's going to be sounds in there that aren't going to be repeated. So I definitely think there's another level to come out of this. And ironically, or not ironically, depending upon your view, it'll come from being just that little bit even more subtle. And then, as Luca is saying, being just in the right moments, slightly more aggressive and slightly more dramatic. I think that's where you get that interesting dynamic, and that's when all the different sections kind of start coming together and the whole thing goes up a notch. But brilliant stuff, man. Paul is such a talented producer.
Really unique.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Sam Hodges is knocking some stuff out as well.
That's like a really... Nowadays, is really important.
Well, that's what we were saying about Ivan, right? It's like, you know, if you contrast like Paul with Ivan, it's like Paul is like... I put the needle on the record, metaphorically speaking, and I instantly know it's a Paul Fakos record. Like, that's what you're looking for, is a motif that is, like, completely unique, that you don't even need to be told who the artist is. You don't need to see the artwork. You don't even need to see the file on a CDJ. You just hear it and know. That's the point. That's the point of the exercise, and all of your favourite artists are that, essentially. So, you know, Paul is doing some incredible work, and as I said, Sam Hodges is knocking out some amazing stuff in the moments as well. So congrats to both. Right, we're going to go to Chris Lloyd. This is called Bittersweet. Hopefully, it'll be more sweet than bitter. Here we go. Alright, that was Chris Lloyd with Bittersweet. I have thoughts.
France is back.
And you know what? This is the time we roll out our catchphrase, is it not, Mr. Luca? We are all trans
We are all
boys
trans
in the
guys.
end. And in the beginning.
And in the end.
Exactly. It all comes back to trance.
We always come back to trance, yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
I mean, even Mike Griego knows that. He called the whole track back in trance recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, big shouts to Mike and his mustache. Yeah, so I know... Go on. You first.
Yeah, I had doubts with the kick when I first hear it. Maybe some boxiness in the 300 to mid area.
Yeah.
But then when it played with the bass, it didn't feel that off.
No, because I think the bass filled in the gap from the kick.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened. Continue.
Yeah, it's and then there's some things about the arrangement. I like the fact that there's a short arrangement and then a breakdown. I like to mix those kinds of tracks sometimes in the set, to do a fast mix. But for me, the problem is that resource that is used in the first part of the arrangement is used two times afterwards,
Exactly.
So it's like you using the same bullet 3 times. So...
Oh, and we are going trancy, aren't we? There's a bullet in the gun.
Yeah.
We are fully back to 1998 now,
yeah.
mate.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good, mate.
Don't give away our age, please.
Mate, it's written all over us. There's no giving it away.
Don't give away.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe I would be maybe the second time maybe you can get away with not doing that and just do a regular drop, because it's like the same escalation of intensity repeating 3 times.
Yeah.
And then after the main breakdown, I assume it would be the last one, the vocal comes back again. And I think by the end of the last break, I think the vocal gave all that it had to give. I don't think that
and more.
I don't think there's reason to bring it back again.
Absolutely.
Maybe just leave the groove and it's good.
Yeah. So totally agree with you on all of that. And this is where I take it to the next level in terms of the feedback for the arrangement. There are too many breakdowns. There doesn't need to be so many breakdowns. There needs to be one, basically, in the track. I was a little bit frustrated when I heard the first break because I was literally just getting into the groove and it stopped. And then it did a build up and then it dropped And then I probably got like another 16 bars and then another breakdown. And like Luca said, the vocal then comes in, it's good and everything, drops, I get another 16 bars, and then I get another breakdown of an equal length, maybe a little bit shorter than the first one. So this track needs to be, for me, refocused. And Luca also made a very good point before, which is the vocal only, in my view, as well as Luca's, only needs to be used once, twice at the absolute most. So for those of you who have heard my feedback over the years, and it was actually quite a funny anniversary I had a few weeks ago. It was, I think, the 12th, it was like 12 years to the day since I met Nile Rodgers from Chic and had like this outrageously detailed conversation with him about music and music production and stuff. And he talked to me at that time about what he called the one-time only event. And this type of thing takes balls to do, which is have an element so good that you only use it once in the track. Because then people, metaphorically speaking, pick the needle up and put it back to the breakdown, for example, and they want to hear it again because what happened was so outrageous that they needed to make sure they heard it right the first time. But the discipline is in only doing it the one time. So we don't need, like, I mean, if you look at the waveform, half the track's a breakdown. Like, we don't need that much time out, you know? And that would be difficult from a DJ situation to actually play as well. And I know what kind of sound you're going for. You're going for that sort of melodic techno, that kind of Masano vibe. And obviously I've got a long history with Masano, so I know exactly what kind of thing you're going for. Listen to some Masano tracks, I'm sure you are already, but use them as references and look at ways in which you can be even more focused in using the emotion of the vocal in the breakdown to really build it up and then really drop it. Because what I felt, similar to Luca, the kick, again, was a bit hollow in like the low mids, which the bass did do a good job of filling in, but it was still a bit of hollowness there. And a lot of your sound designed, you know, rippley, wobbly, sort of like, you know, Sidham wavetabley style sort of womp type sounds on the triplets, they were a little bit thin sounding. And I think one of the reasons why is because you were trying to make room for the vocal to come back in. So if you remove the vocal from the equation in the final third entirely and just let it be all about the sound design and that contrast, you know, it's like, it's almost Skrillex, you know, scary noises and nice sprites. It's like somebody almost crossfaded into another track, you know, and that's totally fine to do that, to have that contrast, to have sweet emotional vocals and some lovely uplifting trancey synths in the break and then drop it to something like really bassy, really aggressive, really in your face in terms of the sound design. So I would like you to take another track, or another crack, I should say, at the arrangement, and I wanted you to discipline yourself to use only one breakdown. Personally, I think you can do it and keep things interesting in the exact same runtime that you've got for the track right now, which is basically 6 minutes. So this is where the discipline comes in, and it's going to force you to look at the track and understand where the gaps are and what you're going to need to do to fill those gaps to keep the track interesting, and then be able to deliver emotionally on a build, a break, the vocal and everything, the emotion, and then the drop into something a lot more aggressive. So, you know, it's close. That's the good thing. Like everything I've just said, I don't want to make it sound like that you're not closer than you are. I'm saying all of this because you're very close. It just feels like the track itself is a little unfocused at the moment. And just having that single breakdown, again, this is like the Patrice Baumel like school of all things arrangement, one of everything, basically. So have a go of it with one breakdown, and I can guarantee you it's going to force you into some really interesting creative places and creative decisions, which will directly and indirectly lead you to fulfilling the potential of the track. But excellent, and a lot of potential.
No, what I wanted to just end up with, like, maybe more on a kind of philosophical note, you know. It's more like, because when I see tracks from this kind of genre that is more like commercial, could be like oriented, and it's a common practice to use the lots of things coming in and out all the time, you know, a lot of transitions, and I think that comes from the fact that there's this thing of attention span, and they feel like people are, it's going to get bored if you have a long chunk of track without any contrast in a moment. And we producers sometimes have that, can fall victim into that train of thought, you know, and overdo it, you know, like
100%.
So
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. We fall foul to many different mental gymnastics.
No, because social media thinks that our attention spans are like you know, weak, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, most people have hung with us for nearly an hour and a half, so that can't be the case.
No, this isn't.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we're going to move on. We've got 2 to go. We've got Vince Jones. I selected this track hopefully because it might be famous movie star and former footballer Vinnie Jones. I'm really hoping it is. It'd be really great if like Vinnie Jones all of a sudden was making techno. I've just put a track out that I still need to put in. Hang on one moment. I need to do. I'm very remiss. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself there. Right. So we're going to listen to Dervish, and then we're going to finish off with Motel with Sands. So that's the running order. So let's have a little go at this, shall we? I feel like I've been hit by about 7 different tracks at the same time there.
Yeah, I really like it though. Like it took me to the 90s. You know, it's like really. It reminds
Very
me of
much so.
You remember Left Field? Like it remind
Oh,
me of
yeah.
that kind of vibe, that kind of
Yeah.
90s hacker,
Yeah.
cyberpunk.
Totally. Craig Forrest in
vibe.
the YouTube comments has just said, "What Time Is Love" by the KLF. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought we were gonna go full rave then, and then then we went into some really interesting. Like, I feel like I've been in a car chase with Jason Bourne in like a Moroccan taxi. Basically, like it's crazy.
I'm not going to ask what were you doing, but yeah.
I mean that's
why?
it.
I'm not going to ask why for sure.
Don't ask, don't tell. Simple as that. Simple as that. Now, I really enjoyed this. I think it could be a bit longer, and I think as well, this is one of those classic things where there's so many ideas in one track. I think he's actually written like an entire EP's worth of music in like one track, basically. I feel like I've listened to a mega mix of like half an album, which is a good thing because then that means, some of those ideas I think can be stripped out and can potentially be used in other tracks because they're all good ideas. I just don't necessarily, I'm not convinced that they all should actually like belong together, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but maybe you say like maybe the ARP, maybe you choose or the ARP or the vocal.
Yeah.
Like say, for instance, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the technicals are all good. The technicals are all good. Groove's fantastic. There's some amazing sort of groovy elements in there. Bass works really well. So bass
work, I really like the sound design and of the mid basses and stuff. Really good.
Yeah, totally, really well done. And it's got a slightly sort of tech housey groove, but it's executed in like such a good, interesting way that it's kind of hard to hold it against it. You know what I mean? But it's an interesting one for sure. And like I say, I think there's multiple tracks worth of interesting ideas in there. So I don't know, maybe Vinnie Jones could have a career in film scoring now. He's making music. I'm sure he's heard that many times before, Vince Jones. Like, so sorry for making that joke 3 times, but yeah, really good stuff, mate. And like I say, I think you could expand it out because 3 minutes 20 is a little bit on the short side. So I definitely think you could expand it out to like 5 minutes or so, and then extrapolate on certain ideas, like me and Luca were talking about, and then save others for other tracks. That's something that happens alarmingly regular. I find myself doing that all the time where I'm like trying to cram as many ideas into a track as possible, and then I realise, actually what I'm doing right now is unconsciously writing the next track. So it's always good to go through that process. And sometimes tracks like this, I call them mother tracks because a lot of the time people don't hear those tracks that I'm stuffing all those ideas in. What they do hear are the babies that track made, basically. So
and often a good practice that us producers sometimes don't do, like, is like saving, like maybe you have a track that is like you're not sure of it, but you leave it as nothing and you don't save the elements that are actually good, the track that you can use afterwards in another track.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a really good practice because
massively.
Sometimes you're stuck in a track and you have a really good element in the same key, and it's just a matter of dropping it, and you already unlock
100%.
the potential you had for that other track.
100%. And if you're constantly saving the sounds that you're designing yourself into a custom folder of presets and Ableton racks or Logic channel strips if you're using Logic or whatever, it's amazing what happens, because all of a sudden, like you were talking about sounding like yourself, you start from such a customized, individualized, unique standpoint that you can only sound like you eventually stop sounding like everyone else.
I'll take it as like a step further. Like a good way of thinking about it for me is like you're producing, but you are also like design your own sample pack.
Yes, exactly.
You're just always dropping new things to your sample pack, and you always have that in folders, and it's like it boosts your workflow like a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And if it's good enough for people like Sasha who do the exact same thing, You know, if you think back a few years, I was heavily involved with the creation of a Machine or a Native Instruments expansion pack of sashes.
I remember that one.
Yeah, I mean, we worked really hard on that, and we went back through the Scene Delete albums, all the old tracks. We went through the Involvers. I think we went as far back as the first Involver, which I think was actually done in Ableton Live 2. And we went back and we looked at it from a perspective of we sampled ourselves. Like, we literally went back and were pulling samples, you know, bouncing stuff out, doing little, you know, renders of different things, and then putting them in, you know, machine kits and, you know, drum racks and all sorts of stuff. So again, look at your own old tracks as sources for samples. You're effectively sampling yourself, and sooner or later what happens, it becomes an automatic process. I mean, if people saw my template for writing in Ableton, you'd be shocked, because, like, to be honest with you, like, the track's like sort of almost 80% done when I open the project, like blank, because I've done so much work over the years and I've put so many presets together. I've got everything exactly where I want it to be. And a lot of the time, it's me just sliding things into position and hitting play. So that's why, you know, again, like, you know this, Luca, because you heard it, but, you know, I did a whole remix today from nothing to finished master in like 6 hours, because I've got everything exactly where I need it at my fingertips. So that's where you can get into with that type of thing. So it's an amazing workflow thing. And this comes to another one of my major tenets and one of the big cornerstone beliefs of the MYT community, is that the more organized you are in terms of your sounds, your samples, your presets, your racks, everything, the more organized you are, the more creative you can be. It's that simple. It really
I
is.
agree with that 100%. Me being more on the obsessive side, but yeah.
Obsessed, yeah, never.
Yeah, but yeah, it boosts your workflow like a lot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because you don't want to be thinking. You know, you really don't want to be thinking. As one of the most philosophically gifted people of all time said, thinking ain't drinking. That was Mo from The Simpsons. And it's true. It's something I live by. Like, and when I mean thinking ain't drinking, I mean thinking ain't writing. Thinking ain't getting the track done. Because you get yourself into a flow state by having all of your tools exactly where you need them. So, yeah, a salutary lesson for us all. Right, to play us out tonight, we've got Motel with Sands 2. Here we go. Let's see what these guys are up to. I really like this. I mean, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, of course. That's why it's in a feedback session. But it's got potential.
It's got potential. It's got really nice elements. I really like those like chord sweeps, kind of reverse chord sweeps, or that there are like a chord that is sweeping through another transition. You know, I really like those. The thing that I find with this track is like it gets too repetitive because there are like things that are playing like at the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
Like you have a pattern that doesn't have modulation and it's always playing the same thing.
Yep.
And then another pattern comes that plays the same thing. And I think that I often say like to my students like it's because there's so much things you can stack on top of each other in a vertical way. So you have to start thinking about the arrangement horizontally.
Yeah.
So things that one thing happens here and another thing happens here and then another here. And that's how you create those different calls and answers between the elements that make the music interesting. Because if you put a pattern on top of a pattern and another pattern, it's like it's going to get repetitive independently of if the patterns are good or not, you know. That's what I think.
100%. So my take on what you just said there has always been that people tend to add more layers to give themselves the feeling of progression, when actually what they're doing is they're either covering up for a deficiency in the elements of the track, so they add more stuff to make it sound better or bigger, or they're just avoiding doing exactly what you're talking about, which is arranging the track horizontally, not stacking things vertically, because it's often a terrifying thing to expand the track out vertically, especially if you're in Ableton and you're stuck in the session view, because what that process does is ruthlessly expose the gaps. It shows you exactly where the track is deficient. The thing is, that's exactly what you need, because you're not going to be able to complete the track to the correct standard if you don't have those deficiencies and those gaps shown to you. So you're absolutely right, Luca. It's an essential thing to try and, at the absolute earliest possible moment, get it into the arrangement view and get like a nominal structure going. So once you've got a skeletal, like structural arrangement going, and I don't mean automation, and this is the other aspect as well, I always recommend that artists do the arrangement like as a block almost, and you can tell a track's really good when it's still interesting based solely on its arrangement, and it doesn't need any automation for it to be interesting. It can be really engaging and can really move based solely on elements and instruments coming and going in different combinations. And then that's when you layer on the automation afterwards. So, yeah, there's a you know, a lot of like sort of philosophical points to be made there. You know, in terms of the technicals, Abraham is right because he's in the YouTube chat. I am about to roast it a little bit. Basically, I think there's a few problems with some of the elements, and
he's in the chat.
Yes.
May I ask, like, in what key is the track?
I mean, yeah, you can. Let's see whether he comes back and tells me. If not, we can find out very easily.
Yeah, I can play a piano here, but I don't.
Well, no, I've got mixed in key live here, so I can just, you know, play it again and find out, you know. So basically, like I think the kick needs a little bit more edge to it. The clap, I'm going to be honest with you, the clap I didn't like. I think it's too heavy, it's too clunky, and it needs to, I think it needs a shorter, more impactful clap, because then the groove will really start to come into it. And I think the clap also takes up some frequency space where you were mentioning before about, you know, the modulation, you know, and the automation of, say, for example, like the acid line and the melodic lines and stuff.
Yeah.
I think the clap is actually, or the clap snare combination is sitting in a frequency area that's preventing that acid and melody line to actually like, you know, fully embody the track, because it needs that modulation. Like you said, it's a layer of something doing something, and then another layer of something doing something, and they're not talking to each other. Like you said, call and response.
Yeah.
So I'm also a big advocate for doing long automation passes. Like I will sit here for an hour and I will do automation pass after automation pass of just one element in the track, whether it be like a filter cut off on a synth, or, you know, a resonance on an acid line or anything like that. And I get that call and response going via multiple layers of performance. So as one goes up, the other one goes down, they talk to each other, there's an interplay, you know, the whole thing, right? So slimming that clap out is going to allow the automation to come in, because I really want that acid to squelch, you know what I mean, and be like really like screaming at certain moments and in your face, and it needs more effect putting on it, like it needs more delay in particular. I do love a good slapback delay on an acid sound. You know, the big one I always used was Waves Kramer tape, but I never used it as a tape machine emulator. I always used it as a delay. Abraham said C sharp, major, minor, pentatonic.
Yeah, that's it's like the reason why I asked the key of the track is because I feel like the bass is like it feels like it's stomped upon, you know, the bass, and that is because it's in a C sharp. Because this is something that I always like try to say, like when you have to be really careful with those kind of notes. Because like for instance, when you have the bass you're playing in G, your tonic is G, your bass is going to be in 100 hertz and your sub is going to be in 50 hertz, so to speak, you know?
Octaves, yeah.
So you have your bass would be 100 hertz and your sub will be 50 hertz. The problem is that when you're playing in C sharp, you know, your sub is going to be at 34 hertz. So you're not going to work with 34 hertz. So basically your bass is going to be like an octave higher of that, you know?
Yeah, and there's also certain notes that will resonate quite dramatically, and then there are others around that area that just disappear.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I feel like the bass is played at an octave that it is where the power of the bass disappears, and it gets like a really muddy, you know. Yeah.
To round off the points, it's C sharp minor, and it's 124 BPM.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I thought it was one of those notes, because like it feels like a stomped upon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely agree. So yeah, just a bit more. I mean, the word I always use as one of our members in particular.
I would say like I would move that bass an octave higher for it to have, like, you know. Yeah, potentially. Yeah, absolutely. Sherry Clark has said Luca needs to be on all the time. He needs to what?
Needs to be on all the time, as in you need to be on every session. I mean, it can be arranged. Like, it can be arranged. I mean, I'll just leave and just let him run the whole thing from now on, if that's what you want, Sherry. Like, I'll just take the night off. I don't care.
Please don't give Paul excuses to stop working, please.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I'm not working hard enough as it is. Jesus. But there you go. So yeah, I mean, just a little more squelch, and like a word I always use to one of our members is wilder. I want it to be a bit wilder. Just have some one or two outrageous moments of just acidy squelch, and I think we're good. But yeah, it kind of reminded me of like old like David Juriez or like Phil Weeks, or even like, you know, like Chicken Lips back in the day. They reminded me of that a little bit. So very, very good. Very good. Oh, Sherry wants both of us. Oh, good. Excellent. Okay. That's Abraham's other half, by the way. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Okay. Well, that's going to do it. Apologies. Well, not apologies if your track wasn't selected. There were very good reasons, and a lot of them were related to not putting downloadable SoundCloud links. So, very important. It's very clearly stated downloadable SoundCloud links over on the submission page over at transition.studio/feedback. Very, very important, because then we can give you the proper feedback. We generally don't like listening to SoundCloud links because the codec that does the streaming for SoundCloud is, in my opinion, extremely poor. So it leads to suboptimal feedback. So we like to do it this way. Also, as well, it's a good thing to understand this because, again, it's good practice for submitting to record labels in the correct fashion as well. So it gets you into good habits. So there you go. So thank you very much, Luca. Absolute pleasure to spend a couple of hours with you.
My pleasure, bro. My pleasure. Really, really, really good music going on in here.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. And, you're part of the family, so, it's entirely exactly where you belong. So, yeah, we're going to be back soon. Keep it locked for some more announcements on future sessions. And again, if you're on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, please do. It helps us out a lot. We've just got about 110, 112 subscribers away from 8,000, which I'm very, very happy with. And we've got a couple of new videos up for you Logic heads about all the new features in Logic 11.2. The stem splitter is absolutely insane. I think it's the best in class now in the industry. I'm about to do another video in the next few days where I'm going to do a shootout of all the best stem splitters, and I'm fairly confident Logic's going to come out on top on that one. And also as well, a lot of the new workflow tools for mixing and mastering in Logic 11.2, absolutely insane. So yeah, give those videos a watch. We've got daily shorts hitting as well from people like Tim Green, Patrice Baumel, Guy Barone. Eventually, Luca will come out in the wash and give you some tips, I'm sure. And just keep it locked to all of the socials as well for what's going on in future. There's plenty coming. A lot of new things on the way. Don't want to say big things coming, but you know what I mean. Anyway, thanks very much, guys. Really appreciated it. Great session as always. And see you guys soon. Much love.